Greetings, earthlings and all other interdimensional entities of love, light, righteousness, peace, goodness, benevolence to all sentient beings that exist on planet Earth, and I guess the unsentient ones too. Let's cover all bases. I'm back again to complete the mission at hand, which is reading The Bear Over the Mountain by Munro. The time is 11:20 a.m. on Wednesday, the 22nd of April, 2026. So, let's get down to business. The isness of the business of the isness, I mean. Let's make it happen, people of Earth. Right, we cut off a couple of days ago. Where the protagonist, Grant, said he had increased in wisdom and stature and in favour with God and man that embarrassed him at the time, gave him a superstitious chill, as it did yet, but so long as nobody knew. It seemed not unnatural. It's a bit like that when you find yourself in favour with God and man. You wonder if, reality's been bent in rather unusual and miraculous ways. I know that feeling only too well. It happened actually when I was dancing at the Brooklyn Standard after Beauregard's death. I was treated like a VIP and I kept thinking, looking around myself, what's going on here? Is this some kind of cosplay or game? I think it was ultimately, although I'd like to think that there were some good intentions in some of the people that were there. It's an awful feeling to think that I was played like some kind of silly old lady. How dare I have authenticity and emotions and my own sexuality, and how dare I have courage, and how dare I show up and do my mosh? How dare I even exist in the world? How dare I continue to exist in the world? So, anyway, fuck them, the altered, turned ones who aren't right in their own souls anymore, and there's not a damn thing anyone can do about it. Sad but true. This is what makes me enemies, holding to my truth. But that's what the final outcome of all that was a slow sliding declension into some kind of alternate reality and hellscape that was not of my choosing. I had every intentions of dancing for both my favourite bands till we all got too old or died, whichever came first. So there is that. And they know that deep down. I told them to their face, but they also know that I was authentic, and in my own weird backhanded ways protective too, but they haven't worked that bit out. It'll come to them later one fine day if they have the insight or the couth or the courage to look back at it all and realise those were the best of times and the worst of times, but the Mamati made the best of it. No matter what, no matter who, I held my line. Right, we'll continue on with the story. He took the book with him the next time he went to Meadow Lake. It was a Wednesday. He went looking for Fiona at the card tables and did not see her. The woman called out to him, "She's not here. she's sick. Sorry, a woman. By the goddess. Would help if I could read properly. My eyes are actually sore. Why am I bothering with any of this, people of Earth? Because I'm biding time till my beautiful life blossoms again exponentially. And I know deep down, although sometimes I despair, but I know it's coming. On a good day, I can hear it breathing. A wonderful new life with wonderful people who have my back, my front and my sides, and love me even with my darkness and my weird shamanic quirky ways. Who won't faint and toss, who won't slink away or slough off, because their love will be real and stoic and kind and honouring. We know who those people are who are still in my life, as I say, even from that one-dimensionality of, you know, parameters to keep us all safe and allow the Tanya enough freedom to be her own soul expression without feeling closeted or too closeted or stymied or smothered or suffocated, because I hate that. I hate that as a child sexual abuse survivor. I hate feeling smothered, especially by people who are superficial and false. Hate it with a passion. And my other survivors like me feel the same way. That love bombing of the narcissist that just dissipates like steam on top of a kettle. The second you don't do exactly what they want or how they think they want it, which most of the time is delusional anyway because they're narcissists. No. We don't want that, people of Earth. We can do better. I'm really enjoying my time alone, actually. Really, more than ever, I've realised it's the gods keeping me safe so that I can show up and be present when I'm truly needed for my beautiful life, whenever that unfurls. And it will blossom out again. Life's like that. After every storm, there's a sunshiny day. After every horrific bushfire, where everything is left blackened and torched and decimated, there's a regeneration. And I'm hopeful and confident that the same will occur after COVID, but we're only just now, 6 years in, seeing all the atrophy and turning of people's personalities and soul evacuations and evils. It's going to take some time before the Holy One, blessed be his name, sends the archangels and the angels to fucking clean up on planet Earth, if that is the will of God, because I don't speak for God, but if that is still yet possible, I'm hopeful that I might live to see that happen. That will be a joyous day, miraculous and joyous, if I should be allowed enough time on this planet to witness that happening. But it's something I intend to work towards, even if it's only in my own mind. And that's why some of this craziness that you see on my YouTube channels, fueled by that, will to good, will to see a better life for all of us, up to and including our children and grandchildren that I personally will potentially never have, given my daughter's late ages and what's been done to us. But, you know, as a Homo sapiens sapiens, I still believe that there's great hope and great beauty and art and music and magic to co-create in this world that is positive, life-affirming, life-enhancing, and it's something we need to all consciously build together, separate but apart. But one day I might find my tribe, or my tribe might find me. That'd be astonishing, wouldn't it? It is what it is. On a good day, I have these ideas that life can still be grand. And on a bad day, it's very tempting to just give everything up. Give it all up. Just let it all die inside of me. But I saw when I was on that dental chair the preternatural spiritual power that was emanating from inside me to not give up and to get the thing that was causing my whole body distress out. And it was deeply, deeply powerful, even to me, even though I was in a disassociated state, part of my mind fragmented to remove itself from all of that. My body kept fighting. And we need to be conscious of that we're not just a body, but we're also a soul, a spirit, in Kabbalah, a ruach, nefesh, and neshama, the breath of life, the animal soul, and the higher mind, the spiritual soul, all working in synergy. It's a powerful, powerful thing, and it's something that the evil ones have tried to dissect or separate us out from. And do not go quietly into that darkest night. Stay in your physicality and your mind as best as you can, given the epic changes to our climate and our world with the radiation and the EMF fields. Try to stay grounded in reality and stay in your bodies for as long as you can. We're here for a reason. We came to this planet for a reason. Didn't always make sense to me either, quite frankly, but the older I get, the more I understand that everything is connected. And far more powerful than we realise. Our souls have so much more than we can even comprehend. We're only shown tiny fragments of what we're actually capable of. So make it for the good of humanity and our planet and all other sentient and unsentient. By unsentient, I mean the inanimate forms like rocks and, tables and chairs and cars. I guess they have their own sentience in a way, but not in a way that we can comprehend. as living, breathing beings. We need to line everything up, be in alignment with everything. Everything, everything. The all. I'm having a spiritual moment here on YouTube, and most of my subscribers and commenters and likers have gone, oh, but Jesus, I can't be dealing with this today, Tanya Aarons. And I get it, but I have to deal with it because it's my gnosis. So let's continue on with the story. A woman called out to him. She's not here. She's sick. Her voice sounded self-important and excited, pleased with herself for having recognized him when he knew nothing about her. Perhaps also pleased with all she knew about Fiona, about Fiona's life here, thinking it was maybe more than he knew. He's not here either, she said. They really are sadistic in those old people's homes. I encountered that too. They really are foul. I used to go home so depressed I had to crawl into bed after each visit, sometimes for a day or two. It was that evil. And that was back in, my mother was languishing there from 2008 till 2010, 18 months. August, I think it was August, they shoveled my mother into that home. August 2008 till 7th of March 2010 when she passed on to the next dimension. Where no doubt, evil that she was, she's still wrecking some kind of havoc even in that dimensionality. Hopefully not. Hopefully she's found peace and eternal rest and, you know, eternity's been kind to her. Oh. Well, one can only hope. Grant went to find Christy. Nothing really, she said, when he asked what was the matter with Fiona. She's just having a day in bed today, just a bit of an upset. Fiona was sitting straight up in the bed. He hadn't noticed, the few times that he'd been in this room, that this was a hospital bed and could be cranked up in such a way. She was wearing one of her high-necked maidenly gowns, and her face had a pallor that was not like cherry blossoms, but like flour paste. Aubrey was beside her in his wheelchair, pushed as close to the bed as it could get. Instead of the nondescript open-necked shirts he usually wore, he was wearing a jacket and a tie. His natty-looking tweed hat was resting on the bed. He looked as if he'd been out on important business. To see his lawyer, his banker, to make arrangements with the funeral director. Whatever he'd been doing, he looked worn out by it. He too was grey in the face. They both looked up at Grant with a stony, grief-ridden apprehension that turned to relief, if not to welcome, when they saw who he was. Not who they thought he'd be. They were hanging on to each other's hands, and they did not let go. The hat on the bed, the jacket and tie. It wasn't that Aubrey had been out. It wasn't a question of where he'd been or whom he'd been to see. It was where he was going. Grant set the book down on the bed beside Fiona's free hand. "It's about Iceland," he said. "I thought maybe you'd like to look at it." "Why, thank you," said Fiona. She didn't look at the book. He put her hand on it. "Iceland," he said. She said, "Ice land?" The first syllable managed to hold a tinkle of interest, but the second fell flat. Just watching these schoolboys park their car in Topaz Street give me a particularly malevolent look, which I returned. Now they're swaggering back off to school like they've just done a drug deal, which is quite possible actually. It's all a bit fucking odd if you ask me. What do I care? Altered people, altered. Our young. Their parents did that to them quite willingly, thinking they would preserve their life. You know what preserves life, don't you? Staying pristine in your body, mind and spirit. I'm one of the few people that thought that way. Now they hate me. Hate me for fighting for them. The young all twisted and distorted and hating the old. I get it. Did that to me, I'd fucking hate you too. I get it. I kind of hate what's been done to us too. Not kind of. I do. I hate it. Took away my grandchildren. The potentials of grandchildren. What good is being a mother if you don't even get to hold your grandbabies in your arms? What good was any of it? Everything I went through was for naught, people of Earth. Naught. Meaningless twaddle, like my YouTube channel. Meaningless time-fighting space banditing. A twaddle, like a doddle in the park, going nowhere, gaining nothing. But enemies, more and more each day. But you know, the kinds of people that are my enemies for speaking to my truth and holding my line, you're not human, so it doesn't really faze me that much. The kinds of people that love and respect and honour me for having some balls and some decency and some courage and some couth. You, my friends, are still human. We must strive to hold on to that humanity for as long as possible. She said, "Ice land." The first syllable managed to hold a tinkle of interest, but the second fell flat. Anyway, it was necessary for her to turn her attention back to Aubrey, who was pulling his great, thick hand out of hers. I might just take a note of their number plate because I had some schoolboys go into my laundry, which I can't lock the door. I've had housing come several times to fix that lock, and again it's not lockable and not closing. But I've had them steal from me. So the way he gave me that snide little fucking look makes me think, I'll just take a note of the number plate. Don't want to be that kind of an old lady, but you just got to protect yourself, don't you? 066. I mean, they're probably innocent and harmless enough. I'll have to go outside. I can't quite see the number plate. I also want to know what kind of car it is. Be right back. People are there. Right, I don't usually bother to call the police because they historically did nothing, left me to die with 3 strangulations and constant threats against myself and my children, so useless as 2 tits on a bull. But sometimes I've had, occasion to report the Cavendish Road school children here because they were quite threatening in 2020-21 period, very threatening, harassed me, even veered off the road to make out that they were going to drive into me, and so I take it all quite serious. But this is a new breed of schoolboys. They're obviously in their final year of school. They look about 17, 18, so I don't recognise them. But you see, this is the altering. It's affected our children, brain distortions. And it can be a bit fucking chilling for me, especially living here alone. Well, one thing I learnt from decades of trauma is to be absolutely fucking fearless. So it's not good that I have to be so hyper vigilant though, but it is what it is. Oh, I forgot to write down the date. I'm not going to report them unless a pattern develops, because there's no crime in parking your car. But it was parked here before, and then they got in and they drove away, went off for lunch somewhere probably, came back, parked in the same spot again, and I only just then noticed the really weird hostile look they were giving me. So it's not a crime, but it's just odd behaviour. I'll just take note of it. What date did I say it was today? 22nd of April. 22nd April. To teenage boys. But anyway, and like I say, it's probably something harmless. I'm not going to worry too much about it. Just didn't like the weird look he gave me. Right, where were we? Iceland. The first syllable managed to hold a tinkle of interest, but the second fell flat. Anyway, it was necessary for her to turn her attention back to Aubrey, who was pulling his great thick hand out of hers. "What is it?" she said. "What is it, dear heart?" Grant had never heard her use this flowery expression before. "Oh, all right," she said. "Oh, here." And she pulled a handful of tissues from the box beside her bed. Aubrey's problem was that he had begun to weep. His nose had started to run, and he was anxious not to turn into a sorry spectacle, especially in front of Grant. "Here, here," said Fiona. She would have tended to his nose herself and wiped his tears, and perhaps, if they had been alone, he would have let her do it. But with Grant there, Aubrey would not permit it. He got hold of the Kleenex as well as he could and made a few awkward but lucky swipes at his face. While he was occupied, Fiona turned to Grant. "Do you by any chance have any influence around here?" she asked in a whisper. "I've seen you talking to them." Aubrey made a noise of protest or weariness or disgust. Then his upper body pitched forward as if he wanted to throw himself against her. As she scrambled half out of bed and caught him and held on to him. It seemed improper for Grant to help her, although of course he would have done so if he'd thought Aubrey was about to tumble to the floor. "Hush," Fiona was saying. "Oh, honey, hush. We'll get to see each other. We'll have to. I'll go and see you. You'll come and see me." Aubrey made the same sound again, with his face in her chest, and there was nothing Grant could decently do but get out of the room. "I just wish his wife would hurry up and get here," Christy said. "I wish she'd get him out of here and cut the agony short. We've got to start serving supper before long, and how are we supposed to get her to swallow anything with him still hanging around?" Grant said, "Should I stay?" "What for? She's not sick, you know." "To keep her company?" he said. Christy shook her head. "They have to get over these things on their own. They've got short memories usually. That's not always so bad." Christy was not hard-hearted. During the time he had known her, Grant had found out some things about her life. She had 4 children. She did not know where her husband was, but thought he might be in Alberta. Her younger boy's asthma was so bad that he would have died one night in January if she had not got him to the emergency ward in time. He was not on any illegal drugs, but she was not so sure about his brother. To her, Grant and Fiona and Aubrey too must seem lucky. They had got through life without too much going wrong. What they had to suffer now that they were old hardly counted. It's true, you know. It's true. Grant left without going back to Fiona's room. He noticed that the wind was actually warm that day, and the crows were making an uproar. In the parking lot, a woman wearing a tartan pantsuit was getting a folded up wheelchair out of the trunk of her car. You're very quiet today, birdie boys. Very quiet, my little ones. The street he was driving down was called Black Hawk's Lane. All the streets around were named for teams in the old National Hockey League. This was in an outlying section of the town near Meadow Lake. He and Fiona had shopped in the town regularly, but had not become familiar with any part of it except the main street. The houses looked to have been built all around the same time, perhaps 30 or 40 years ago. The streets were wide and curving, and there were no sidewalks, recalling the time when it was thought unlikely that anybody would do much walking ever again. Friends of Grant's and Fiona's had moved to places something like this when they began to have their children. They were apologetic about the move at first. They called it going out to Barbecue Acres. Young families still lived there. There were basketball hoops over garage doors and tricycles in the driveways. But some of the houses had gone downhill from the sort of family homes they were surely meant to be. The yards were marked by car tracks. The windows were plastered with tin foil or hung with faded flags. Rental housing. Young male tenants, single still or single again. A few properties seemed to have been kept up as well as possible by the people who had moved into them when they were new. People who hadn't had the money, or perhaps hadn't felt the need to move on to someplace better. Shrubs had grown to maturity. Pastel vinyl siding had done away with the problem of repainting. Neat, I had to think about that. Neat fences or hedges gave the sign that the children in the houses had all grown up and gone away, and that their parents no longer saw the point of letting the yard be a common run-through for whatever new children were loose in the neighbourhood. The house that was listed in the phone book as belonging to Aubrey and his wife was one of these. The front walk was paved with flagstones and bordered by hyacinths that stood as stiff as china flowers, alternately pink and blue. How beautiful. I love hyacinths. The turkeys ate my last hyacinths though. Evil little birds who I still feed, but they're evil little birdies when they take my expensive bulbs. Feeling a bit dizzy now. Might have to go back to bed when I finish this story, people of Earth. Probably just hungry though. Dizzy, hungry, dizzy, old, tired, wild, fiercely innovative, creative. It's a mixed bag. It goes round and round like a giant mosh. All I need is a cuddle and $20 million, you understand. Oh, you have to laugh. Fiona had not got over her sorrow. She did not eat at mealtimes, though she pretended to, hiding food in her napkin. Pardon me. She was being given a supplementary drink twice a day. Someone stayed and watched while she swallowed it down. She got out of bed and dressed herself, but all she wanted to do then was sit in her room. She wouldn't have taken any exercise at all if Christy or one of the other nurses, and Grant during visiting hours, had not walked her up and down in the corridors or taken her outside. In the spring sunshine she sat, weeping weakly, on a bench by the wall. She was still polite. She apologised for her tears and never argued with a suggestion or refused to answer a question. But she wept. Weeping had left her eyes raw-edged and dim. Her cardigan, if it was hers, would be buttoned crookedly. She had not got to the stage of leaving her hair unbrushed or her nails uncleaned, but that might come soon. Christy said that her muscles were deteriorating and that if she didn't improve soon, they would put her on a walker. But you know, once they get a walker, they start to depend on it, and they never walk much anymore. Just get wherever it is they have to go. You'll have to work at her harder, she said to Grant. Try and encourage her. But Grant had no luck at that. Fiona seemed to have taken a dislike to him, though she tried to cover it up. Perhaps she was reminded, every time she saw him, of her last minutes with Aubrey, when she had asked him for help and he hadn't helped her. He didn't see much point in mentioning their marriage now. She wouldn't go down the hall to where most of the same people were still playing cards, and she wouldn't go into the television room or visit the conservatory. She said that she didn't like the big screen. It hurt her eyes, and the birds' noise was irritating, and she wished they could turn the fountain off once in a while. As so far as Grant knew, she never looked at the book about Iceland or at any of the other surprisingly few books that she had brought from home. There was a reading room where she would sit down to rest, choosing it probably because there was seldom anybody there. And if he took a book off the shelves, she would allow him to read to her. He suspected that she did that because it made his company easier for her. She was able to shut her eyes and sink back into her own grief. Which is what my psychiatrist says I suffer from, a complicated grief. And I concur. It's been a long grieving this time, because it was cumulative, like a spiralling spike protein. So many vectors, so much abandonment, so much betrayal, so much sordidity and ugliness, so much evil. And yet, my beautiful ones, we persist. Because if she let go of her grief even for a minute, it would only hit her harder, and she bumped into it again. And sometimes, he thought, she closed her eyes to hide a look of informed despair that it would not be good for him to see. So he sat and read to her out of one of these old novels about chaste love and lost and regained fortunes that could have been the discards of some long ago village or Sunday school library. There had been no attempt, apparently, to keep the contents of the reading room as up to date as most things in the rest of the building. The covers of the books were soft, almost velvety, with designs of leaves and flowers pressed into them. So that they resembled jewellery boxes or chocolate boxes that women, he supposed it would be women, could carry home like a treasure. The supervisor called him into her office. She said that Fiona was not thriving as they had hoped. Her weight is going down even with the supplement. We're doing all we can for her. Grant said that he realised they were. The thing is, I'm sure you know, we don't do any prolonged bed care on the first floor. We do it temporarily if someone isn't feeling well, but if they get too weak to move around and be responsible, we have to consider upstairs. He said he didn't think that Fiona had been in bed that often. No, but if she can't keep up her strength, she will be. Right now she's borderline. He said that he had thought the second floor was for people whose minds were disturbed. That too, she said. He hadn't remembered anything about Aubrey's wife except the tartan suit he'd seen her wearing in the parking lot. The tails of the jacket had flared open as she bent into the trunk of the car. He had got the impression of a trim waist and wide buttocks. I just feel a tingling in my hair as if someone was gently pulling my hair and trying to figure out if it's spirit or some tick in my scalp, but no, it felt like someone was pulling at my hair very gently. Odd, isn't it? Well, the mamatee's hypersensitive, so we won't take too much notice of that. But you know how the spirits like to pop in occasionally. Right. She was not wearing the tartan suit today. Brown belted slacks and a pink sweater. He was right about the waist. The tight belt showed. She made a point of it. It might have been better if she hadn't, since she bulged out considerably above and below. She could be 10 or 12 years younger than her husband. Her hair was short, curly, artificially reddened. She had blue eyes, a lighter blue than Fiona's, a flat robin's egg or turquoise blue, slanted by a slight puffiness. There it goes again, just here. It's odd. All right. Won't pay too much attention to it. Although I've paid attention to it twice. Caught my attention. Well, it could be just my skin literally crawling. As in it could be a physical malaise rather than spiritual. It's now tickling all around here. It's a bit bizarre. That's why I can't help noticing it. And a good many wrinkles made more noticeable by walnut stain makeup. Perhaps that was her Florida tan. He said that he didn't quite know how to introduce himself. One of the tawny frog mouths is still there. Only one today though. Oh no, wait. There are two. I just couldn't see the other one. Oh, I'm glad they're together because it worried me when he was here for a week on his own. I used to see your husband at Meadow Lake. I'm a regular visitor there myself. Yes, said Aubrey's wife with an aggressive movement of her chin. How is your husband doing? The doing was added on at the last moment. Normally he would have said, how is your husband? He's okay, she said. My wife and he struck up quite a close friendship. I heard about that. So, I wanted to talk to you about something, if you had a minute. My husband did not try to start anything with your wife, if that's what you're getting at, she said. He did not molest her in any way. He isn't capable of it, and he wouldn't anyway. From what I heard, it was the other way round. Grant said, no, that isn't it at all. I didn't come here with any complaints about anything. Oh, she said. Well, I'm sorry. I thought you did. It was all she was going to give by way of apology. And she didn't sound sorry. She sounded disappointed and confused. You better come in then, she said. It's blowing cold in through the door. It's not as warm out today as it looks. So it was something of a victory for him, even to get inside. He hadn't realised it would be as hard as this. He had expected a different sort of wife, a flustered homebody, pleased by an unexpected visit and flattered by a confidential tone. She took him past the entrance to the living room, saying, we'll have to sit in the kitchen where I can hear Aubrey. Grant caught sight of 2 layers of front window curtains, both blue, one sheer and one silky, a matching blue sofa and a daunting pale carpet, various bright mirrors and ornaments. Fiona had a word for those sort of swooping curtains. She said it like a joke, though the women she picked it up from used it seriously. Any room that Fiona fixed up was bare and bright. She would have been astonished to see so much fancy stuff crowded into such a small space. He could not think what that word was. From a room off the kitchen, a sort of sunroom, though the blinds were drawn against the afternoon brightness, he could hear the sounds of television. Aubrey, the answer to Fiona's prayers, sat a few feet away, watching what sounded like a ball game. His wife looked in at him. She said, "You okay?" and partly closed the door. "You might as well have a cup of coffee," she said to Grant. He said, "Thanks." My son got him on the sports channel a year ago, Christmas. I don't know what we'd do without it. On the kitchen counters there were all sorts of contrivances and appliances, coffee maker, food processor, knife sharpener, and some things Grant didn't know the names or uses of. All looked new and expensive, as if they'd just been taken out of their wrappings or were polished daily. He thought it might be a good idea to admire things. He admired the coffee maker she was using and said that he and Fiona had always meant to get one. This was absolutely untrue. Fiona had been devoted to a European contraption that made only 2 cups at a time. They gave us that, she said. Our son and his wife. They live in Kamloops, BC, which would be British Columbia. They send us more stuff than we can handle. It wouldn't hurt if they would spend the money to come and see us instead. Cupboard love. Grant said philosophically, I suppose they're busy with their own lives. They weren't too busy to go to Hawaii last winter. You could understand it if we had somebody else in the family closer at hand, but he's the only one. It's evil, isn't it? It's been done to me, completely wiped for the crime of being poor and disenfranchised and marginalised, and a conspiracy realist. Babies. Never mind. Who needs that shit anyway? I need people in my life who genuinely love me and are present with me. Presence, not presence. Dear Goddess, it's profound that the one time I dragged myself off to the art gallery that my daughter happened to be working that day, I kept away, of course, but the title of the exhibition currently running is Presence. You see how my spirit people have a twisted sense of humour? Well, I had no idea what I was going to. It is what it is. People do get lonely, Grant said. He thought he saw his chance now. If they're deprived of seeing somebody they care about, they do feel sad. Fiona, for instance, my wife. I thought you said you went and visited her. I do, he said. That's not it. Then he took the plunge, going on to make the request he'd come to make. Could she consider taking Aubrey back to Meadow Lake, maybe just one day a week for a visit? It was only a drive of a few miles. Surely it wouldn't prove too difficult. Or if she'd like to take the time off. Grant hadn't thought of this before and was rather dismayed to hear himself suggest it. Then he himself could take Aubrey out there. He wouldn't mind at all. He was sure he could manage it, and she could use a break. While he talked, she moved her closed lips and her hidden tongue as if she was trying to identify some dubious flavour. She brought milk for his coffee and a plate of ginger cookies. Homemade, she said as she set the plate down. There was challenge rather than hospitality in her tone. She said nothing more until she had sat down, poured milk into her coffee and stirred it. Then she said no. No, I can't do that, and the reason is I'm not going to upset him. Would it upset him? Grant said earnestly. Yes, it would. It would. That's no way to do. Bringing him home and taking him back, bringing him home and taking him back, that's just confusing him. But wouldn't he understand that it was just a visit? Wouldn't he get into the pattern of it? He understands everything all right. She said this as if he had offered an insult to Aubrey. But it's still an interruption. And then I've got to get him all ready and get him into the car. And he's a big man, and he's not so easy to manage as you might think. I've got to manoeuvre him into the car. I'm getting very tired. Only 1 hour in today. But it is my second video. By the goddess. Alright. Bear with me, people of Earth. And I'll bear with you. We'll complete this book today. I'm determined. I'm kind of swirling outside of my head, so I'm leaving my body, but we will complete. No one's forcing me to. It's my own choice, which is how I function in life. People of Earth. Sometimes almost like a petulant child at times, fighting my own body, mind and spirit. La vida loca. Arriba, arriba! Here she is, babies. Fighting forwards on my feet. Viva la revolution. Right. I've got to manoeuvre him into the car and pack his car along and all that, and what for? If I go to that trouble, I'd prefer to take him someplace that was more fun. But even if I agreed to do it, Grant said, keeping his tone hopeful and reasonable, it's true, you shouldn't have the trouble. You couldn't, she said flatly. You don't know him. You couldn't handle him. He wouldn't stand for you doing for him. All that bother. And what would he get out of it? Grant didn't think he should mention Fiona again. It'd make more sense to take him to the mall, she said, where he could see kids and whatnot. If it didn't make him sore about his own 2 grandsons he never gets to see. Or now the lake boats are starting to run again, he might get a charge out of going and watching that. She got up and fetched his cigarettes and lighter from the window above the sink. You smoke, she said. He said no thanks, though he didn't know if a cigarette was being offered. Did you never, or did you quit? Quit, he said. How long ago was that? He thought about it. 30 years. No. More. He decided to quit around the time he started up with Jackie, but he couldn't remember whether he quit first and thought a big reward was coming to him for quitting, or thought that the time had come to quit, now that he had such a powerful diversion. I've quit quitting, she said, lighting up. Just made a resolution to quit quitting, that's all. Maybe that was the reason for the wrinkles. Somebody, a woman, had told him that women who smoked developed a special set of fine facial wrinkles. But it could have been from the sun or just the nature of her skin. Her neck was noticeably wrinkled as well. Wrinkled neck, youthfully full and up-tilted breasts. Women of her age usually had these contradictions. The bad and good points, the genetic luck or lack of it, all mixed up together. Very few kept their beauty whole, though shadowy, as Fiona had done. And perhaps that wasn't even true. Perhaps he only thought that because he'd known Fiona when she was young. Perhaps to get that impression, you had to have known a woman when she was young. The only man who knew me when I was young has abandoned me, people of Earth. Does it really matter in the broad scheme of things? Don't know. And we were never lovers. We were close friends and, well, kind of emotional lovers, I guess, in a way when we were young, but we were never sexual partners is what I'm saying. So when Aubrey looked at his wife, did he see a high school girl full of scorn and sass, with an intriguing tilt to her robin's egg blue eyes, pursing her fruity lips around a forbidden cigarette? So your wife's depressed, Aubrey's wife said. What's your wife's name? I forget. It's Fiona. Fiona. And what's yours? I don't think I ever was told that. Grant said. It's Grant. She stuck a hand out unexpectedly across the table. Hello, Grant. I'm Marion. So now we know each other's name, he said. There's no point in not telling you straight out what I think. I don't know if he's still so stuck on seeing Fiona or not. I don't ask him and he's not telling me. Maybe just a passing fancy. But I don't feel like taking him back there in case it turns out to be more than that. I can't afford to risk it. I don't want him getting hard to handle. I don't want him upset and carrying on. I've got my hands full with him as it is. I don't have any help. It's just me here. I'm it. Did you ever consider it is very hard for you, Grant said. Did you ever consider his going in there for good? He had lowered his voice almost to a whisper, but she did not seem to feel a need to lower hers. No, she said. I'm keeping him right here. Grant said, well, that's very good and noble of you. He hoped the word noble had not sounded sarcastic. He had not meant it to be. You think so? She said. Noble is not what I'm thinking about. Still, it's not easy. No, it isn't. But the way I am, I don't have much choice. If I put him in there, I don't have the money to pay for him unless I sell the house. The house is what we own outright. Otherwise, I don't have anything in the way of resources. I get the pension every year, and I'll have his pension and my pension. But even so, I could not afford to keep him there and hang on to the house. And it means a lot to me. My house does. It's very nice, said Grant. Well, it's all right. I put a lot into it, fixing it up and keeping it up. I'm sure you did. You do. I don't want to lose it. No. I'm not going to lose it. I see your point. The company left us high and dry, she said. I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but basically he got shoved out. It ended up with them saying he owed them money, and when I tried to find out what was what, he just went on saying, it's none of my business. What I think is he did something pretty stupid, but I'm not supposed to ask, so I shut up. You've been married. You are married. You know how it is. And in the middle of me finding out about this, we're supposed to go on this trip with these people and can't get out of it. And on the trip he takes sick from this virus you never heard of and goes into a coma. So that pretty well gets him off the hook. Grant said, bad luck. I don't mean exactly that he got sick on purpose. It just happened. He's not mad at me anymore, and I'm not mad at him. It's just life. That's true. You can't beat life. She flicked her tongue in a cat's businesslike way across her top lip, getting the cookie crumbs. I sound like I'm quite the philosopher, don't I? They told me out there you used to be a university professor. Quite a while ago, Grant said. I'm not much of an intellectual, she said. I don't know how much I am either. But I know when my mind's made up. And it's made up. I'm not going to let go of the house, which means I'm keeping him here. And I don't want him getting it in his head he wants to move any place else. It was probably a mistake putting him in there so I could get away, but I wasn't going to get another chance, so I took it. So now I know better. She shook out another cigarette. I bet I know what you're thinking, she said. You're thinking, there's a mercenary type of person. I'm not making judgments of that sort. It's your life. You bet it is. He thought they should end on a more neutral note, so he asked her if her husband had worked in a hardware store in the summers when he was going to school. Never heard about it, she said. I wasn't raised here. Driving home, he noticed that the swamp hollow that had been filled with snow and the formal shadows of tree trunks was now lighted up with skunk lilies. Their fresh, edible-looking leaves were the size of platters. The flowers sprang straight up like candle flames, and there were so many of them, so pure yellow that they set a light shooting up from the earth on this cloudy day. Fiona had told them that they generated a heat of their own as well. Rummaging around in one of her concealed pockets of information, she said that you were supposed to be able to put your hand inside the curled petal and feel the heat. She said that she had tried it, but she couldn't be sure if what she felt was heat or her imagination. The heat attracted bugs. Nature doesn't fool around just being decorative. He had failed with Aubrey's wife. Marion. He had foreseen that he might fail, but he had not in the least foreseen why. He had thought that all he'd have to contend with would be a woman's natural sexual jealousy, or her resentment, the stubborn remains of sexual jealousy. He had not had any idea of the way she might be looking at things. And yet, in some depressing way, the conversation had not been unfamiliar to him. That was because it reminded him of conversations he'd had with people in his own family, his uncles, his relatives, probably even his mother, had thought the way Marion thought. They had believed that when other people did not think that way, it was because they were kidding themselves. They'd got too airy-fairy or stupid on account of their easy and protected lives or their education. They had lost touch with reality. Educated people, literary people, some rich people like Grant's socialist in-laws had lost touch with reality due to an unmerited good fortune or an inane silliness. In Grant's case, he suspected they pretty well believed it was both. That was how Marion would see him, certainly. A silly person full of boring knowledge and protected by some fluke from the truth about life. A person who didn't have to worry about holding on to his house and could go around thinking his complicated thoughts, free to dream up the fine, generous schemes that he believed would make another person happy. What a jerk, she would be thinking now. Being up against a person like that made him feel hopeless, exasperated, finally almost desolate. Why? Because he couldn't be sure of holding on to himself against that person? Because he was afraid that in the end they'd be right? Fiona wouldn't feel any of that misgiving. Nobody had bet her down, narrowed her in when she was young. She'd been amused by his upbringing, able to think its harsh notions quaint. Just the same, they have their points, those people. He could hear himself now arguing with somebody. Fiona? There's some advantage to the narrow focus. Marion would probably be good in a crisis, good at survival, able to scrounge for food and able to take the shoes off a dead body in the street. Able to walk away from long-term friendships because I dared to say no and keep fucking saying no. Here I am, barefooted as usual, barefoot, naked, sacred truth. Will I survive? Probably not. But I'll go down with my truth burning inside me for fucking eternity, people of Earth. Come as you are, as a friend, as I hoped you would be. Fuck off. All of it. All of it. all of it. Trying to figure out Fiona had always been frustrating. Could be like following a mirage. No, like living in a mirage. Titania's realm, am I right? I don't live in your world of sadism and cruelty and narcissism and psychopathology and evil and cowardice and befoulments. I live in mine. Yes, it's illusory and desultory and delusional, but it's my safe space. Mine. Getting close to marrying would present a different problem. It would be like biting into a litchi nut. The flesh, with its oddly artificial allure, its chemical taste and perfume, shallow over the extensive seed, the stone. I think he means lychee. But you don't eat the stone, do you? No, you don't. So I don't know what he's talking about there. Litchi, Litchi. A bit confused by that, you can tell. This is the look of me confused. Just wander off into some other dimension. But I come back. Sometimes dazed as well as confused. Sometimes with an incisive clarity that is scathing and scarifying and piercingly adroit. He might have married her, think of it. He might have married some girl like that. If he'd stayed back where he belonged, she'd have been appetizing enough with her choice breasts, probably a flirt. The fussy way she had of shifting her buttocks on the kitchen chair, her pursed mouth, a slightly contrived air of menace. That was what was left of the more or less innocent vulgarity of a small-town flirt. She must have had some hopes when she picked Aubrey. His good looks, his salesman's job, his white-collar expectations. She must have believed that she would end up better off than she was now. And so it often happened with those practical people. In spite of their calculations, their survival instincts, they might not get as far as they had quite reasonably expected. No doubt it seemed unfair. In the kitchen the first thing he saw was the light blinking on his answering machine. He thought the same thing he always thought now. Fiona. He pressed the button before he got his coat off. Hello, Grant. I hope I got the right person. I just thought of something. There is a dance here in town at the Legion, supposed to be for singles on Saturday night, and I am on the supper committee, which means I can bring a free guest. So I wondered whether you would happen to be interested in that. Call me back when you get a chance. A woman's voice gave a local number. Then there was a beep, and the same voice started talking again. I just realised I forgot to say who it was. Well, you probably recognise the voice. It's Marion. I'm still not so used to these machines. And I wanted to say I realise you're not a single, and I didn't mean it that way. I'm not either. But it doesn't hurt to get out once in a while. Anyway, now I've said all this, I really hope it's you I'm talking to. It did sound like your voice. If you are interested, you can call me, and if you are not, you don't need to bother. I just thought you might like the chance to get out. It's Marion speaking. I guess I already said that. Okay then, goodbye. Her voice on the machine was different from the one he'd heard a short time ago in her house. Just a little different in the first message, more so in the second. A tremor of nerves there, an affected nonchalance, a hurry to get through and a reluctance to let go. Something had happened to her. But when had it happened? If it had been immediate, she had concealed it very successfully all the time he was with her. More likely it came on her gradually, maybe after he'd gone away, not necessarily as a blow of attraction, just the realisation that he was a possibility, a man on his own, more or less on his own, a possibility that she might as well try to follow up. But she had the jitters when she made the first move. She had put herself at risk. How much of herself he could not yet tell. Generally, a woman's vulnerability increased as time went on, as things progressed. All you could tell at the start was that if there was an edge of it now, there'd be more later. It gave him a satisfaction, why deny it, to have brought that out in her, to have roused something like a shimmer, a blurring on the surface of her personality. To have heard in her testy, broad vows this faint plea. He set out the eggs and mushrooms to make himself an omelette. Then he thought he might as well pour a drink. Anything was possible. Was that true? Was anything possible? For instance, if he wanted to, would he be able to break her down, get her to the point where she might listen to him about taking Aubrey back to Fiona? And not just for visits, but for the rest of Aubrey's life? Where could that tremor lead them? To an upset? To the end of his self-preservation? To Fiona's happiness? It would be a challenge and a creditable feat. Also, a joke that could never be confided to anybody, to think that by his bad behaviour he'd be doing good for Fiona. But he was not really capable of thinking about it. If he did think about it, he'd have to figure out what would become of him and Marion after he'd delivered Aubrey to Fiona. It would not work unless he could get more satisfaction that he foresaw, finding the stone of blameless self-interest inside her robust pulp. You never quite knew how such things would turn out. You almost knew, but you could never be sure. She would be sitting in her house now, waiting for him to call, or probably not sitting, doing things to keep herself busy. She seemed to be a woman who would keep busy. Her house had certainly shown the benefits of non-stop attention. And there was Aubrey. Care of him had to continue as usual. She might have given him an early supper, fitting his meals to a Meadow Lake timetable in order to get him settled for the night earlier and free herself of his routine for the day. What would she do about him when she went to the dance? Could he be left alone, or would she get a sitter? Would she tell him where she was going, introduce her escort? Would her escort pay the sitter? She might have fed Aubrey while Grant was buying the mushrooms and driving home. She might now be preparing him for bed. But all the time she would be conscious of the phone, of the silence of the phone. Maybe she would have calculated how long it would take Grant to drive home. His address in the phone book would have given her a rough idea of where he lived. She would calculate how long, then add to that time for possible shopping for supper, figuring that a man alone would shop every day. Then a certain amount of time for him to get around to listening to his messages. And as the silence persisted, she would think of other things, other errands he might have had to do before he got home. Or perhaps a dinner out, a meeting that meant he would not get home at supper time at all. He would stay up late. She would stay up late cleaning her kitchen cupboards, watching television, arguing with herself about whether there was still a chance. What conceit on his part. She was, above all things, a sensible woman. She would go to bed at her regular time, thinking that he didn't look as if he'd be a decent dancer anyway. Too stiff, too professorial. He stayed near the phone looking at magazines, but he didn't pick it up when it rang again. Grant, this is Marion. I was down in the basement putting the wash in the dryer and I heard the phone, and when I got upstairs, whoever it was had hung up. So I just thought I ought to say I was here. If it was you, and if you are even home, because I don't have a machine, obviously, so you couldn't leave a message. So I just wanted to let you know. Bye. The time was now 25 after 10. Bye. He would say that he'd just got home. There was no point in bringing to her mind the picture of his sitting here, weighing the pros and cons. Drapes. That would be her word for the blue curtains. Drapes. And why not? He thought of the ginger cookies so perfectly round that she'd had to announce they were homemade. The ceramic coffee cup mugs on their ceramic tree. A plastic runner, he was sure, protecting the hall carpet. A high gloss exactness and practicality that his mother had never achieved, but would have admired. Was that why he could feel this twinge of bizarre and unreliable affection? Or was it because he'd had 2 more drinks after the first? The walnut stain tan, he believed now that it was a tan, of her face and neck would most likely continue into her cleavage, which would be deep, crepey skinned, odorous and hot. He had that to think of as he dialed the number that he had already written down. That and the practical sensuality of her. Cat's tongue. Her gemstone eyes. Fiona was in her room, but not in bed. She was sitting by the open window, wearing a seasonable but oddly short and bright dress. Through the window came a heady, warm blast of lilacs in bloom, and the spring manure spread over the fields. She had a book open in her lap. She said, "Look at this beautiful book I found. It's about Iceland. You wouldn't think they'd leave valuable books lying around in the rooms. The people staying here are not necessarily honest, and I think they've got the clothes mixed up. I never wear yellow." "Fiona," he said, "you've been gone a long time. Are we all checked out now?" "Fiona, I've brought a surprise for you. Do you remember Aubrey?" She stared at him for a moment, as if waves of wind had come beating into her face. Into her face, into her head, pulling everything to rags. "Names elude me," she said harshly. Then the look passed away as she retrieved with an effort some bantering grace. She set the book down carefully and stood up and lifted her arms to put them around him. Her skin or her breath gave off a faint new smell. The boys are back, but only one, getting into his car and driving off. Odd. School must be out. So let me repeat that sentence. Her skin or her breath gave off a faint new smell, a smell that seemed to him like that of the stems of cut flowers left too long in their water. "I'm happy to see you," she said, and pulled his earlobes. "You could have just driven away," she said, "just driven away without a care in the world and forsook me, forsaken me, forsaken." He kept his face against her white hair, her pink scalp, her sweetly shaped skull. He said, "Not a chance." And thus concludes today's story and the entire book. And the author has posted more blurbs, pages about, the background of each contributing author. I don't know if you're interested to hear about that. I guess if you're really curious, you could Google them for yourself, each author. But it's actually really lovely that he's given a bit of a blurb on each one of them, explaining their where they were born and their life periods. Oh, you know what? In for a penny, in for a pound. It's only a few more pages. So I will save you having to Google. Let's continue on reading about the contributors. Isaac Babel, 1894 to 1940, was born in Odessa, Ukraine, formerly Russia. At the age of 21, he went to St. Petersburg, and in 1923 he wrote a number of short stories printed in periodicals. An instant literary success, these formed the nucleus of the Odessa stories. Other stories, scenarios and plays followed, including The Red Cavalry. Unable to conform to the demands for political conformism that were being made on him, however, Babel was arrested in 1939 and was eventually killed by Stalin's police in 1940. He was 46 years old. I've just done the maths. David Bezmosji was born in Riga, Latvia. In 1980, he immigrated with his parents to Toronto. He received an honours Bachelor of Arts in English Literature from McGill University and a Master of Fine Arts from the University of Southern California School of Cinema Television. His writing has appeared in magazines such as Harper's, The New Yorker, and The Walrus, and has been anthologized in Best American Short Stories 2005. His collection of stories, Natasha, was published to widespread critical acclaim. He lives in Toronto. Harold Brodkey, 1930 to 1996. So he was 66 when he died. Was born in Staunton, Illinois, and raised in University City, Missouri, outside St. Louis. After graduating from Harvard University, Brodkey began his writing career by contributing short stories to The New Yorker and other magazines. His stories won him 2 first-place O. Henry Awards. His story collections include First Love and Other Sorrows, Stories in an Almost Classical Mode, and The World and the Home of Love and Death. Just pretty much story of my life too. He is also the author of the novels Women and Angels, The Runaway Soul, and Profane Friendship, and a collection of non-fiction titled Sea Battles on Dry Land. Raymond Carver, 1938 to 1988, which meant he was 50, was born in Clatskanie, Oregon, in 1938. His first collection of stories, Will You Please Be Quiet? Please, a National Book Award nominee in 1977, was followed by What We Talk About When We Talk About Love, Cathedral, nominated for the Pulitzer Prize in 1984, and Where I'm Calling From in 1988, when he was inducted into the American Academy of Arts and Letters. He died in August of that year, shortly after completing the poems of A New Path to the Waterfall. My little birdies have been like two little quiet, little muted little puddles of feathers all day long. It's a bit odd. Eileen Chang, 1920 to 1995, which put her at 75, who lived in the United States after fleeing communist China in 1956, was a prominent fiction writer, essayist, and public intellectual. She is the author of Romances, The Rice Sprout Song, a novel of modern China, and The Rouge of the North. Excuse me, I've only drunk water, but somehow I'm bilious. Anton Pavlovich Chekhov, 1860 to 1904, which meant he was 44 when he passed, was born in Taganrog, Ukraine. First published in the 1880s, he was a celebrated figure in Russia by the time of his death in 1904. But he remained relatively unknown internationally until the years after World War I, when his works were translated into English. His essays, plays, poetry, and short fiction have been translated into countless languages. Stuart Dybek is the award-winning author of the story collection Childhood and Other Neighbourhoods, I Sailed with Magellan, and The Coast of Chicago, and the poetry collections Brass Knuckles and Streets in Their Own Ink. He received his MFA from the University of, that would be Masters of Fine Arts, from the University of Iowa in 1973, and is a distinguished writer in residence at Northwestern University. His many awards include a PEN/Malamud Prize, a Lannan Award, and Whiting Writers Award. Deborah Eisenberg is the author of 4 story collections, Transactions in a Foreign Currency, Under the 82nd Airborne, All Around Atlantis, and Twilight of the Superheroes. She is the recipient of a Whiting Writers Award, a Lannan Foundation Fellowship, a Guggenheim Fellowship, and the Rias Award for the short story. Jeffrey Eugenides was born in Detroit and attended Brown and Stanford universities. His first novel, The Virgin Suicides, was published to great acclaim in 1993 and was made into a film directed by Sofia Coppola. His second novel, Middlesex, won the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction and was a finalist for the National Book Critics Circle Award. William Faulkner, 1897 to 1962, which meant he was 65 when he died, was born in New Albany, Mississippi. His most celebrated novels include The Sound and the Fury, As I Lay Dying, Light in August, Absalom, Absalom, and The Unvanquished. In 1949, he was awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature. His novel, A Fable, won both the Pulitzer Prize and the National Book Award in 1955, and his collected stories won the National Book Award in 1951. Richard Ford is the author of the story collections Rock Springs, Women with Men, and A Multitude of Sins, as well as 6 novels. A Piece of My Heart, The Ultimate Good Luck, The Sports Writer, Wildlife, Independence Day, which won the Pulitzer Prize, and most recently, The Lay of the Land, which was a finalist for the National Book Critics Circle Award. David Gates is a staff writer for Newsweek and lives in New York. He has been published in Esquire, GQ, Grand Street, Ploughshares, Tri-Quarterly, The Best American Short Stories, and the O. Henry Prize Stories. His collection of stories, The Wonders of the Invisible World, was a finalist for the National Book Critics Circle Award. Dennis Johnson is the author of Jesus' Son, a critically acclaimed story collection, 6 novels, most recently Tree of Smoke, a collection of poetry and a book of reportage. He is the recipient of a Lannan Foundation Fellowship and a Whiting Writers Award, among many other honours for his work. He lives in northern Idaho. Miranda July is a filmmaker, writer, and performance artist. Her work has been published at sites such as The Kitchen, the Guggenheim Museum, and in 2 Whitney biennials. She wrote, directed, and starred in her first feature-length film, Me and You and Everyone We Know, which received numerous awards. July's short fiction has been published in The New Yorker, The Paris Review, Harper's, and Zoetrope, and her collection of stories, No One Belongs Here More Than You, was published in 2007. Milan Kundera is a Franco-Czech novelist who was born in Brno and has lived in France, his second homeland, since 1975. He is the author of the novels The Joke, Life is Elsewhere, Farewell Waltz, The Book of Laughter and Forgetting, The Unbearable Lightness of Being, and Immortality, and the short story collection Laughable Loves, all originally in Czech. His most recent novels, Slowness, Identity and Ignorance, as well as his non-fiction works, The Art of the Novel, Testaments Betrayed, and The Curtain, were originally written in French. Bernard Malamud, 1914 to 1986, which meant he was 72. Yes, 72 when he passed. Wrote 8 novels. He wrote the Pulitzer Prize and the National Book Award for The Fixer and the National Book Award for The Magic Barrel. Born in Brooklyn, he taught for many years at Bennington College in Vermont. It's one of my favourite American Jewish authors. Laurie Moore is the author of the story collections Birds of America and Self-Help, and the novels Who Will Run the Frog Hospital and Anagrams. Her work has appeared in The New Yorker, the Best American Short Stories, and Prize Stories, the O. Henry Awards. She is a professor of English at the University of Wisconsin in Madison. Alice Munro grew up in Wingham, Ontario, and attended the University of Western Ontario. She has published 11 story collections. Dance of the Happy Shades, Something I've Been Meaning to Tell You, The Beggar Maid, The Moons of Jupiter, The Progress of Love, Friend of My Youth, Open Secrets, The Love of a Good Woman, Hateship, Friendship, Courtship, Loveship, Marriage, Runaway, and a volume of selected stories, as well as a novel, Lives of Girls and Women. She is the recipient of many awards and prizes, including 3 of Canada's Governor-General's Literary Awards and 2 of its Gilla prizes, the National Book Critics Circle Award, and the Edward MacDowell Medal in Literature. Her stories have appeared in The New Yorker, The Atlantic Monthly, The Paris Review, and other publications, and her collections have been translated into numerous languages. Robert Musil, 1880 to 1942, so he was 62 when he passed, was an English short story writer, novelist, and playwright. His main works include The Man Without Qualities, 5 Women, also published as 3 Women, The Posthumous Papers of a Living Author, know how that goes, and The Confusions of Young Taurus. Vladimir Nabokov, 1899 to 1977, which puts him at 78 when he passed, was born and raised in St. Petersburg. He left Russia when the Bolsheviks seized power, eventually living in England, Germany, and the United States. He is the author of numerous stories, plays, and novels, most notably Lolita, which he wrote in Russian and self-translated into English. So I was right about that when I questioned that when I was presenting his short story to you. Clever, Mama T. I've forgotten more than I know. I'm not quite forgetting all of it yet. No Alzheimer's or dementia yet, people of Earth. But I'm very tired, and I do have little spells of confusion at times, which is a worry, I guess. We're not accepting that reality into my world. I clawed my mind back on 3rd of June 2016 to be here, pristine and fully cognizant and wild and free. Gratitude to my beautiful ones who supported me to reaching as close to wholeness as I can possibly get, people of Earth. Grace Paley, 1922 to 2007. 88 and 7, 95. Longings, Grace Paley divided her time between New York City and Thetford Hill, Vermont. She is the author of the story collections The Little Disturbances of Man, Enormous Changes at the Last Minute, and Later the Same Day. Her collected stories was a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize and the National Book Award. She also wrote 2 books of poetry and 1 volume of poems and prose pieces, Long Walks and Intimate Talks. Paley taught at Columbia University, Sarah Lawrence, Dartmouth, and the City College of New York. She was a recipient of the 1993 Vermont Award for Excellence in the Arts and the 1992 REA Award for Short Stories and the 1989 Edith Wharton Award. Mary Robeson was born in Washington, D.C. She graduated from Johns Hopkins, where she studied with John Barth. She is the recipient of a Guggenheim Fellowship, 2 Pushcart Prizes, an O. Henry Award, and the Los Angeles Times Book Prize for Fiction. She is the author of 3 previous novels, O, Subtraction, and Why Did I Ever, and of 4 story collections, Days, An Amateur's Guide to the Night, Believe Them, and Tell Me. Robeson has written for Hollywood and has been a contributor to The New Yorker since 1977. George Saunders is the author of In Persuasion Nation, The Brief and Frightening Reign of Phil, Pastoralia, Civil Warland in Bad Decline, a children's book, The Very Persistent Gappers of Fripp, and the essay collection, The Brain Dead Megaphone. He writes regularly for The New Yorker, Harper's, and GQ. In 2006, he was awarded a MacArthur Foundation Fellowship for bringing to contemporary American fiction, a sense of humour, pathos, and literary style, all of his own, close quotes. He teaches creative writing at Syracuse University. Gilbert Sorrentino, 1929 to 2006. 77. Is the author, is that right? No, 1 is 30, 70, 71. No, that's correct, 77. Is the author of more than, I'm not very good at maths, is the author of more than 30 books, including the classic Mulligan Stew and 2 novels that were finalists for the PEN/Faulkner Award, Little Casino and Aberration of Starlight. He was the recipient of 2 Guggenheim Fellowships and the 2005 Lannan Lifetime Achievement Award. Once an editor at Grove Press, Sorrentino taught at Stanford University before returning to his native Brooklyn. William Trevor was born in Mitchellstown, County Cork, and spent his childhood in provincial Ireland. He attended Trinity College, Dublin. He is a member of the Irish Academy of Letters and a foreign honorary member of the American Academy of Arts and Letters. a highly acclaimed short story writer. His notable collections include the collected stories Two Lives, After Rain, The Hill Bachelors, and most recently, Cheating at Canasta. His novels include Felicia's Journey and The Story of Lucy Galt. He received the Lannan Literary Award for Fiction in 1996. And I won't bother reading all the permissions because obviously they were permitted or they wouldn't be in the book, and well, Mama T has presented them to you in honour of all their brilliance. So thus concludes this rather long epic tome. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Some of it was quite emotionally cathartic for me, particularly the last story, how it ended, and you could see I was quite emotional. Is it good or is it bad? Only time will tell. As they said, it's a life. So many blessings, Goddess, God, the Infinite Holy One, the Ein Sof, or the, if you're Christian, the Christ consciousness be upon you, me, and all of us. Oh, I forgot to mention Allah. It doesn't matter what religion or spiritual path you follow. I'm sending you blessings from the light and oneness. And as I said when I began this video, everything and everyone is connected. We're all at different stations in our journey through this cosmos, but eventually we find our way and we have our day. Shalom. Bye for now from Sacred Space at Titania's Realm.